Welcome in to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. A podcast dedicated to everything you need to know about the squad. Hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and those who cover the NBA on a daily basis. It's time to flock up. The New Orleans Pelicans Podcast starts right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans on the 17th of January. It is Friday. Jim Eichenhofer thrilled, not only because it's Friday, because the Pels won and snow is coming.
Can't wait.
The excitement level through his voice, you can hear it. In all honesty, though, how fun was the win back on Wednesday? This is what it sounded like on the Pelicans Radio Network.
Back to Trey, who needed into the front court. He'll pick up, and then a little mini windmill two-hand flush. A little Zion light. Up the floor, McCollum. Stop, pop, right wing three, another break. Flying in and dunking it on the follow is Javonte Green.
Oh, no, he did not do that.
Yes, he did. Murray for three, left wing. Yes, sir. DeJounte Murray hold the pose. Straightaway three. Front iron rebound on the deck. Good job taken by Murray. Murphy and Kleba going at it in the backcourt. Now DeJounte crosses over, pulls up from the nail. Yes, sir.
Take it over, DJ. Take it over.
DeJounte Murray with a flourish of points. Murray one-on-one with Thompson. Spins right, spins left, 10-footer. Oh, my heavens. Putting on a show, DeJounte Murray. Everybody up. McCollum drives down the lane. Hook pass to Trey. Fake a three to Green. Left wing three. Yeah!
Javonte Green to you.
Hawkins picked up his dribble. We throw it away. Najee to Dinwiddie. Blocked by Murphy!
Trey Murphy the third.
Get it to Hawkins!
Ball game.
The ups and downs, Mr. Jim Eichenhofer, of a John DeShazer, Todd Graffagnini radio call.
That was a roller coaster. Just the last minute of the game had a lot of peaks and valleys. Unbelievable.
We need to go get the team doctor to make sure they're good cardio-wise and that heart there. Look, man, 2 straight wins, 3 of the last 4. Just quick overall thoughts. We'll hear from Willie Green and some of the players in that game. But what stood out in that win to you?
I mean, DeJounte Murray continues to play really well. He had 30 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. But I think more importantly, down the stretch, we talked all offseason about how one of the main reasons they acquired him was for what he can do in the clutch. He had 3 game winners for the Hawks last season. He didn't have a game winner in this, but, I mean, they don't win this game if he doesn't make a bunch of huge baskets in the last few minutes. He was going back and forth with Klay Thompson at the end there. And another guy, too, Javonte Green, we heard Graf's call of he probably made the biggest basket of the night with that three-pointer that the ball was swung to him with about 40 seconds left to put the Pelicans up. But he is doing so many things well, and he got the start. He's kind of been rotating back and forth between coming off the bench or starting the last few games, but he's been super valuable. So just a lot of positive stuff. And then obviously Trey Murphy, again, continues his free throw streak, had 24 and 10, had the 3 blocks, with the third being the most important one. So we're just seeing so many positive things right now, and it's been now starting to be over a multiple game stretch, not just a one-off game here and there.
Yeah, no doubt. DeJounte Murray on getting 13 points in the final 6 minutes in the fourth quarter.
Really just trying to stick with it. You know, the beauty of being a part of a team that got the talent we have, you don't got to do too much. It could be any guy's given night. You know, I just know myself. I live for those moments, and whatever it is. If it's I got to sit down and guard, got to get a rebound, got to get a bucket, got to create for my teammates. I think it just comes down to winning basketball, and I think that's what we're trying to create here. On a daily basis. So, great team win.
Here's Trey Murphy, who had another solid game. And again, he's not knocking down a ton of threes, only 2. But, Jim, he's helping in so many other areas that is just showing the growth as a player and what he's been able to do. It's what Willie Green had to say.
When you look at the box score, 10 rebounds, it jumps out to you right away. That means his activity is high. He understands that, we haven't been doing a great job of finishing possessions defensively, but Trey is he's been amazing for us. His ability to shoot the ball, drive the ball, get to the free throw line. He made a huge play at the end where, it was a drive kick. He might have had the shot, and then he swung it to Javonte for the wide open three. That was a big time play, and that's where he's continuously growing.
I think it was Boston where a reporter asked Trey. In his mind, he thought Trey took over the game at a certain point. And he asked Trey Murphy when he decides and chooses to do those things. And you heard him kind of say when to take over or not. Here, I want to go back. Here's what it was.
I mean, this is what I'm capable of, and it's just, once again, that being aggressive. I think the biggest thing for me is just knowing time is scored, knowing, when to let the game come to me, and then also knowing when to, take the game for myself. So I think that's what it really was.
The reason I bring that up is because we're going to talk a little bit about it in our radio roundtable, and we've already discussed what kind of player he's going to be and where his future is going here. But players that have the ability to score, drive to the basket, do those different aspects of it, isn't that the hardest thing to try to gauge? I'm not saying selfishness or things of that nature, but, it's about me, or I'm getting my points and all that. And that's not a bad thing. Sometimes the team says, hey, go do it. That's why you're the star. You're the guy to go do that. But he didn't even think about that. Here's a pass to a guy that you and I were going, that's the guy who's going to take the three,
Right.
instead of the guy that is known for taking the three. But is that just as impressive to you as his game is?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think we forget sometimes how much the mental part of the game matters, how huge that is in a player's career. And I mean, I think the thing that stands out to me, he said this so many times you can't even count, where he's talked about his aggressiveness, how that's increased. I mean, some of this is dependent a little bit on who else is on the court. Sometimes he's on the court with 3 or 4 other guys who all are big-time scorers, and I think in the past maybe he's taken a little bit more of a backseat because of that, just based on the players that are surrounding him and the situation of the game. But, I mean, to me, another thing about Trey that really stands out, he's just reminding me, I feel like a lot of times in the NBA we forget that a guy in his 4th, 5th, 6th year of his career can still get better. I feel like a lot of times we spend a lot of the offseason saying about players that have been in the league for that amount of time, like they are what they are. I mean, Evan Mobley is another guy that reminds me of that. It's like, you can't. But I think part of the reason we don't talk about it that much is it's really hard to predict. It's hard to predict who's going to be the guy in his 4th year that improves the most. I mean, we can talk about the rookies and the guys coming in and the trades and the free agent moves, but a lot of times the most important developments across the whole league are these players that are, Trey's still only 24 years old. The players at this part of their career, how much better do they get? Do they plateau? Do they level off? Are they the same player in year 7 that they were in year 3? That happens sometimes with certain guys. But with Trey, I think it's been so cool and so important for the franchise going forward to see him make the steps that he's made lately.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And again, whether it's basketball IQ, trust, and just being a guy that just gets it, and more than anything else.
He's really smart.
No,
it doesn't surprise me that he's able to take different aspects of his game that you say, okay, work on this and see how much better you can get at it. Change your approach. It doesn't surprise me that he can do it because, if you listen to him speak and you talk to him, you're around him at all, he's just a really intelligent guy that understands not just basketball, but just in general. I think that's one of the reasons why from day one he's always been one of the most popular players among his teammates as well. He's just a really likable, smart individual.
Look, you said it. And in the Western Conference, it's tough. All-star. I think he has all-star ability. I think he can score from a number of different ways. If that defense even gets even better as well, because he has the length. He could be a guy like you see DeJounte Murray. I think JD calls him condor-like wings.
Wingspan, yeah.
Exactly. I'm just excited to see, because you're seeing him grow by the game.
And he's also gotten stronger physically, too. It's not just the mental game.
Yeah.
That he's made improvements. I think his shoulders are bigger from when he first came into the league. And, if you look at the way he looked when he was a rookie compared to now, you can see how much work that the time that he spent in the weight room. And I think we all know, too, when you're throughout your 20s, you get big naturally. Like, even if you don't do anything, you get stronger. It's kind of what people call that grown man strength. But, yeah, across the board, he's just, one of those guys that I think stands out. I feel like more people would be talking about him across the league if it wasn't for the Pelicans record. So as he continues to play well and the Pelicans win more games, I think you'll start to see even more people recognize, like, this guy is a budding star right now.
And to think he didn't start the season.
That's
because
right.
of injury. So imagine how much further along he would be.
Sure.
One final thing, and we'll get to our radio roundtable. Erin Summers, Todd Graffagnini will be joining us for a fun discussion here. 3 of the last 4, Jim, they've played better. They've looked better. Will you agree?
Yeah, it's we've been working, and we're getting better and better. We're getting more confident in what we can do on the floor. We're having some consistency with guys, the same guys starting, playing off each other. So, some nights Trey's got it going, we're looking for Trey. Some nights it's CJ, he's got it going, we're looking for CJ. Tonight it was DeJounte, and we just kept getting the ball in his hands and letting him operate. But collectively, all of our guys have been doing a great job of just continuing to stay with it, buying in, even as we have faced some difficulties throughout the course of the season.
We're going to get into specifics about what we want to see the final 40 games, but it's crazy. 41 are in the books. But when you look at where this team sort of is and where they are at the halfway point, I mean, at least you're seeing some better basketball, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of time left in the season. So, I mean, to go through what we saw for a lot of the early portion of the season would have been really rough to have to continue to endure that. So, yeah, it's just been a lot more fun to be in the arena, and I think they're putting together some stretches of basketball that I think people can be a lot more content with, and we won't have to listen to people be so angry on social media, including me sometimes, and just be more content with the way things are going, and hopefully that's something that will carry out through the last few months of the season, and then they can take that into the summer and say, hey, look what we did in January, February, March, and April that we can look at as a positive as opposed to the way the season started.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, time for our radio roundtable, and I think it'll be fun. Enjoy. Time for the radio roundtable segment. Todd Graffagnini, voice of the Pels. Erin Summers, what do we want to be today? We want to be sideline reporter, we want to be host, we want to be team reporter. What are we picking?
I'm those things every day.
Yeah, you're everything. And Jim Eichenhofer, NewOrleansPelicans.com here as well. Got a lot of fun here that I want to get into. Let's start with 1 is the number. I need one word, Mr. Todd Graffagnini, to describe the first half of the season. One word.
Deflating.
Ooh.
We didn't know it at the time, but, the season effectively went the wrong way about 4 games in. DeJounte Murray broke his hand on opening night. And then the first game in San Francisco against the Warriors after the 2 games in Portland, Herb Jones and C.J. McCollum went down. And then a couple of games after that, after a win against the Indiana Pacers in the Smoothie King Center, Zion Williamson got hurt. And there's just no recovering from that. And that's, that overall record in October and November and December, I mean, it's just really, really difficult to win basketball games when you don't have your frontline guys. And I think you're seeing the reverse of that right now. And I know we'll get into it a little bit, but isn't it amazing how much better the Pelicans are playing when they actually have their players? So it's just, the canyon is so deep, and you have all these expectations coming out of training camp, and we have not seen the starting 5 play one game together that we saw in training camp. And I know it's a tough word, but that's what it is.
Yeah. I said frustrating because I think that's what the season has felt like. Every other day it was a new injury, the way that you're so close to some of these wins and you couldn't quite get them. So there's just so many things I think that came out, and maybe it was deflating for some. I think after the first game and you saw how great everything could be, and then went from there, yeah, it was deflating. But from every other game from then on, it's been extremely frustrating up until recently. Obviously, things have changed, but yeah, it's tough. And I think Zion mentioned it too. Like early in the season, he had a quote about that would happen to us. Like the ball bounced the wrong way or something like that. And he's like, it's just kind of par for the course here. And unfortunately, that's how it has been this season.
My one word is unthinkable. There was a couple other options. I was going to say unfathomable, but I thought unthinkable would be easier to say, as I probably just proved. But I mean, to me, if you had told me before the season that, 6-8 of your top guys would be out, I still would have said they won't be 9-32 halfway through the season. Now they're 10-32. Obviously, that was the 41 game mark that I was referencing. It's just unbelievable. I could never have pictured, as Erin also just touched on, the number of different things that all went the wrong way, whether with the injuries being the number one thing, but also a lot of bad breaks within games, a lot of players taking a lot longer time after they came back from injury to look like themselves, which I know we're going to probably reference and talk about here in a second. But just, I could have never envisioned the way that the first 41 games went. So my word is unthinkable, because there's no way that you could have if you told me before the season that all this stuff was going to happen, I would be like, this is the most nightmarish scenario that you could have possibly come up with. And even with all of the things that happened, I still would have been like, they're going to win more than 9 games out of their first 41. So
nightmarish isn't the word.
I was gonna
that
say,
could
I like
be that too.
nightmare.
Yeah, I could have thought that too. Nightmare.
Yeah.
There's several times during the first half where I was like, kind of half jokingly, kind of more gallows humor, saying to people like, "Man, I had a nightmare that I woke up and the Pelicans were 5-17 or whatever it was, and that actually was what their record was." So it definitely was nightmarish.
Well, I guess probably like disheartening, just because there was so much excitement. We couldn't wait, obviously, not only in Nashville to see what DeJounte Murray was going to be, and I mean, we saw how good a shape Zion Williamson looked in, even though Screaming A and Shannon Sharp, don't think so. But, I mean, we were just so excited to see what was going to happen in Trey and all of these different aspects of it. And because what was going to happen with the injuries and the losses, stuff like that. National media, how are they going to feel? Fans, here we go again. And I'm like, it's just what Jim just said. It's unthinkable. You can't think of that many injuries in a season. So to me, it was disheartening.
Yeah, I mean, the balloon popped quickly.
Man, I forgot Trey Murphy got hurt the first day of
Trey
training
didn't even
camp.
know.
Start the season.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I did a radio interview last night, and we're talking about Trey, and how great he was playing. And it was like, y'all got to remember this. He didn't play the first 10 games.
Yeah.
I mean, think about, he's missed, 16, 17 games now. So it's been tough.
It's to the point, Erin. Even we're sitting there with Jim on Sunday, and then on the podcast on Monday, and then that third segment, we're sitting there like I couldn't believe that Sunday was the first time Zion, Trey, and DeJounte played in the first game this season in January. So yeah, it just stinks. Like, all right, I love what y'all did with one word, so let's do this again. Almost on an opposite end, I think. How about one word to describe the Pelicans in January so far?
Entertaining.
I like it.
It's been a lot of fun. Now, we've had one clunker in there with Portland.
Yeah.
But other than that, this is, what it's all about. Competing, down to the wire. I mean, those games on the road trip were fun. I mean, really fun. And it stinks that probably the best game of the year is the one in Boston, which we lost by 1. That shot by CJ goes in at the end, and the Pels are on a 4-game winning streak right now, and all these games are tight down the stretch. Thank goodness for the Washington Wizards. They got us going in the right direction. And I know Jim would also throw in the Jose Alvarado coming back into the mix helps as well, because the numbers absolutely back that up. But no, this is it's been a pleasure to call these games. That it's just, we got great gigs, but it's no fun when you're losing game after game after game and the games are not close. These games have been really, really fun to watch. So I'll say entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, coming off the Saints season for me, I was already beat down. So it's been rough. So this month has been very encouraging. It has been fun. I think that we are all excited about what this team can be. We're kind of finally getting to see it. And things are actually going in our way.
So what's your word?
Encouraging.
Encouraging.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Entertaining, encouraging, Jim.
I mean, Trey's goaltending was actually called a block. So, things are falling our way.
Yes, that would not have happened in October or November. They would have called it goaltending 3 times somehow on one play. Coincidentally, I have another E word for my one word to describe January, and that is expected. And when I say that, I mean this is what I expected to happen throughout the whole season. The fact that they've won a bunch of games lately, they've beaten some good teams. They had some good road wins, which we saw a ton last year. I thought from the beginning that they were going to build on last season, that they were going to, you always start from scratch at the beginning of every season, obviously, but I just thought there would be so much more traction with what they did last season, and then adding DeJounte Murray. So, I mean, across the board too, whether it's the team, the way they've played in January, or several individual players, the way that they've performed lately is what I expected, and that's why that's my word for January.
I'm so not good in this with you guys, but I projectful is the word that comes to my head. I don't even know if this is right.
Is that a word?
Not a word.
I know. I'm combining, right?
Where's the gong? Like, you're out of here.
Hopeful, right? It's like it showed me the hope, and it's kind of projecting.
How about projectable?
Okay.
In terms of what they've done so far.
I'm seeing maybe perhaps with those three players that we were just talking about, Erin, that we saw finally for the first time in Boston, like what this team can be. So
yeah,
it's giving me hope, and it's almost like a projecting of what maybe can be either the rest of this season or moving forward. Because I think before our very eyes, we're seeing Trey Murphy grow by the game into not just one of the best players on the Pels team, but I think this guy's going to be one of the best players in the NBA. I mean, he's going from somebody that, hey, it's nice if he shoots some threes and stuff. And I know we've talked about it here as a group. When he either leaves a game or got injured or has to go out of a game, the offense changes. And I don't think we've ever been able to say that about Trey Murphy. So to me, that importance level's really changed. So I didn't know, projectful. I just made
I'm still trying to figure out your word based on what you just said.
It's not a word, yes. Yeah, but you're not surprised, Todd.
I'm just glad that I'm not alone. And I think I said this last season that I think he has all-star potential and that he will be an all-star. And I heard Antonio Daniels say the same thing on the broadcast the other day of that this guy has the ability to become an all-star player. So we're starting to see it all come together for him. The package of skills that he has is very unique in terms of his three-point shooting, his athleticism, the fact that he finished as runner-up in the dunk contest and also could win the three-point contest as well. So it's been great to see him the way he's played lately.
Got anything?
I was just going to say his ability to get to the rim has just taken his game up another level. And, oh, by the way, he's a brilliant free throw shooter. I said it again on radio last night. He will be 50, 40, 90 at some point in his career. This year it's crazy because he's actually got the hardest part down. He's at 91%, but he's at 45 and 36 right now, the other two. But he will be 50, 40, 90.
It's something that really stood out, too, that Willie Green said at the end of the game, too, just the pass to Javonte for the three. Interesting. He's a guy that likes to pass, too, and he's not one of those, I need mine or whatever.
He's got career highs across the board. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and we're talking rebounding and steals.
Blocks.
And blocks. Three blocks the other night. So, no, he is literally growing before our eyes, and I don't want to segue into what we're going to talk about next because he's going to be a part of it.
Okay. How do I petition Webster to make projectful a word?
No, stop. Move on.
It's not a word. Okay, got it. 40 games left. I can't believe we're at the halfway point of the season. So Todd, what do you want to see this team accomplish in the Final 40?
I think that fully can't be answered until after February 8th, and we see what the roster is going to be moving forward. But just continue to play hard and establish your core for next season.
Yeah.
That to me has to, like, again, the record is what the record is. If the ultimate optimist sitting across from me, I mean, if you want to talk about playing right now, you'd have to go on a 20-game winning streak.
You're referring to me as the optimist?
That would be you. Yes.
I can't go there with what you just said. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
All right, so establish your core, which I think we have a pretty decent idea who it's going to be and who is going to be part of your plan for next season. Mm-hmm. And try to see how healthy we can be and get that core playing together as many games as they can.
Yeah, I mean, I went on the same path there, you got to figure out the right dynamic, who that is first with the trade deadline coming up. And then who works best with who and what works best for this team. Like, what is the identity of this team going to be once you figure out who the pieces are? And
of course, Herb's going to be back next year as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I had a similar answer, so I'll go in a little bit of a different direction, and it's a very vindictive one. And one of my goals for the rest of the season, the last 40 games, is to ruin other teams' lives as much as possible.
I like that. No. I like that also.
I mean, what we've seen lately since January started, since those 2 games against the Wizards, as Graff referenced earlier, has been very entertaining and fun. But I want to add to the fun list several nights over the course of the rest of the season where, they knock a team out of the playoff race or the play-in race, or they have some night where another team comes in here and says, like, this Pelicans team, look at their record. They're not playing for anything. And then the Pelicans smack them. As people know, I've experienced some misery over my time. Teams like the Spurs have ruined many nights for me. So I think it's time for some payback. So that's one of the things I want to see. I think we'll have a lot of fun in the last part of the season if they make some miserable evenings for some of these teams and hand some teams, especially in the West, some crucial, costly losses.
I'm fully on board with that.
Vindictive, Jim. I like that. I would just say, for me, it's just find your identity. What are you going to be? Like, what is your thing moving forward? The final 40 games. What are you hanging your hat on? What do you want to be known for? What are we building? What's your foundation? Find out about yourself.
I think we're starting to see a little bit. Again, it's so unfortunate what happened at the beginning of the year. But we're seeing the vision now. The 3-point attempts have skyrocketed.
Yeah, you're right. Good point.
The turnovers, forced, points off turnovers, getting those fast break points. We're beating the brakes off these teams. Think about it in the last, 2 weeks? Look at points off turnover differential in favor of the Pelicans now. We're winning games because we're turning teams over. So it took 2.5, 3 months, but this is what I think the original vision was.
All right. Which Pels player you expect to make the most strides in the second half?
I'm going to go with Murray. I'm going to go with DeJounte Murray just because I think we're finally starting to see the back of the baseball card for him, and he's playing the way we thought he was going to play from the beginning of the season. Now, again, he got hurt opening night. He's been dealing with a ton of stuff off the court, which I think has contributed to what we have seen on the court. And look, he's not going to make any excuses, but it has to have been weighing on him because he's just too good of a player to have been putting up the type of numbers that he has percentage-wise. What we saw the other night was basically what we have been witnessing his entire career. I mean,
clutch.
He took that game over in the fourth quarter, and I thought, Jim, you had a great point when he was going head-to-head with Klay Thompson. I mean, again, you go in the entertainment factor. That was fun. That was a lot of fun to watch. But, the point totals are going to go up. He's been assisting. He's been rebounding pretty consistently now for the last 3 weeks, nearly a month. And those numbers are just going to remain steady, if not go higher and higher. He's already been a big deflections guy. He's had 3 games this year with 6 steals, which is crazy. And I just think he's going to get better and better as the season goes on.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Now he's scoring, and he's somebody that you can depend on. He had 13 points in the fourth quarter alone last Wednesday night. So that's huge because that's what you were expecting to get out of him. I kind of want to see how much further Trey can go, and not necessarily like what his ceiling is, because I think he's going to continue to get better, but how much more consistent he can be from as far as his point totals. I mean, he's been hitting 30 a couple times here, so I think that's interesting. But for me, I want to see Zion Williamson and his growth on the defensive end, because I think that's been something that we've seen in these last few games back for him that has been a different dynamic to his game. And can he keep that up? And how much better does that make this team? How much better does it make him on the other end? So, yeah, just kind of. And
just to piggyback with Trey, he's getting these point totals, and he's not shooting the ball well from outside. Right. He is added to his game by allowing himself to drive, get easy buckets, and make free throws. Yeah. You look at his 3-point percentage, in those games where he's had 30, and even against Dallas the other night, he's making 2 threes a game.
Yeah.
He's not making 5 or 6.
He's keeping his streak going,
The
but he's
streak
not.
continues, which is very,
good
very
point, Erin.
important. But the percentage is not there, but he's making it up in other ways.
You guys both referenced a few players that either had injuries and then came back and it took a little while for them to get going, or in Zion's case, he was out for a while and it didn't seem like it. Seemed like the first game he was already scrambling around on defense and doing. The guy that I picked for this category, though, is Jordan Hawkins, as somebody who I think we're still waiting for that to kick in, where he's also had injuries with his back, and it's been something that, unfortunately, I think has really greatly affected him this season. But he shot 36% from the field, 32% from three-point range. We've seen him have some amazing games. He had 34 points in Dallas last year on a night when the team was super shorthanded and was still able to win. We've seen him have stretches where he's just on fire. So if you look at his shooting numbers, it's just so uncharacteristic of him. And I mean, this is a guy who was a lottery pick at the end of the lottery a year ago. This is his second season. So I think I'm looking forward to him playing better. And I think he's one of the most crucial guys in terms of going forward in the future, that he has a really good second half.
Well, the good thing about Hawkins, though, is he still continues to hoist shots up, even though
That's right.
he's not where he wants to be, but he is not passing up the looks when he's getting them. He's got to continue to do it.
Sure.
We've had so many good looks from outside. I mean, wide open, and they're just not falling. So we're getting wide open good looks because of, obviously, Zion Williamson's presence inside. It's looking a lot better, and I think that it's going to change.
I'm going to throw Yves Missi in there just quickly, just because I'm excited just to see him play with Zion and Trey the way he's playing in DeJounte. We just haven't seen that many games. I mean, really hasn't played that many games with Zion just yet. And I guess my thing is, I wonder if he can be a guy who can get you double-double nights. It may not be like, the Joker graph that gets you like 20 and something like that. But the last couple of games, like 12 points, 6 boards, a couple away, right? 7 boards, 8 boards, 9 boards. And if you add all those guys together, maybe that's a guy that can do that. That'd be something I don't think anybody would expect,
No, that'd be great. And look, if y'all noticed the other night, too, against Dallas, DeJounte Murray and Yves Missi were picking and rolling from the very beginning of the game. And you just got to get those hands ready because some of these passes that Murray pulls out, I mean, these bounce passes are just unbelievable. He's got to catch the ball. He's going to get a ton of easy looks, a ton of dunk attempts.
That's what I mean.
If he's able to catch these passes from Murray.
Yeah, see what takes place here. All right, as we said, we've passed the halfway point of the schedule and in the season, so let's look at the rest of the schedule. Is there anything that stands out to you, Todd, whether it's a road trip, a homestand, a string of opponents that are coming?
Well, I thought about this. It's going to be a little general, but I think Jim is going to appreciate this. I'm going to call this spring training, the month of February, because it's all baseball series. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
We're going out of town for the Super Bowl. We're going to Denver, baseball series there. Next week at home against Sacramento, baseball series there on a back-to-back home. And then 2 weeks later, baseball series against San Antonio at home, and then a back-to-back away against the Phoenix Suns. So, I mean, that's 4 different 2-for-1s, and 2 of them are true back-to-backs. So, and with going on Jim's theme earlier, God, I want to beat Oklahoma City so bad. We're playing them the day after the Super Bowl in OKC. I would just love to, if we got our guys, we'd have a chance.
It's really hard to beat the same team 2 times in a row, unless you're the Washington Wizards. But we finally got our first win on a back-to-back.
That's right. Mention it post-game.
Yeah. So there we go.
And a road home back-to-back at that.
Obviously, that was the win over Dallas. So things are looking up. But I circled the same. It was a stretch there where it was the February 3rd and 5th game at Denver, the 8th at Sacramento, 10th at OKC. That road stretch is going to be tough. And then, of course, you come back and you have 2 more games against Sacramento. That's crazy.
They're playing much, much better now since they put Doug Christie at head coach.
we are loving February as a group because the games that I picked out was the 5 games right after the All-Star break. They start out at Dallas, then they have the 2 games against the Spurs, then they have the 2 games against Phoenix. I just think that's an interesting stretch of 5 games in a row where you're playing against teams that, I mean, the Spurs and the Suns right now are both in play-in contention in terms of, it's not a certainty that they're going to finish in the top 10, so I think those will be crucial games for them. And then Dallas, the game after the All-Star break, just looking forward to playing them again after what happened the other night. And, I'm sure by then the Mavs will be closer to full strength, and hopefully the Pelicans will be closer as well. So those are my 5. Right after the All-Star break, I think there was a bunch of different options that were good for this, but I thought that was the one that was the most interesting.
Yeah, the start of March kind of looks interesting to me too. I mean, Houston's a tough team to play. Obviously, they're physical. Memphis is physical. And with Ja, did y'all see the dunk on Wemby? I mean, that's incredible. Mm-hmm. And the Spurs are at the end of that week too. And for some reason, Utah is just an interesting matchup against this team. That's the first 2 weeks of March, and Detroit sprinkled in there, and they're a tough team to play right now.
Detroit is.
Yeah, but we have no Lauri Markkanen tonight.
Correct.
That's a very good.
Among about 8 other players.
Or
that
Walker
are
Kessler,
who
they just added to the injury. Now, you tell me this. Walker Kessler's in his 3rd year in the NBA. They played on Wednesday night at home against Charlotte and lost, did Utah. And they just added Walker Kessler to the injury report this morning. Rest. He's not playing tonight.
That is called
resting.
We don't want to win this game.
Correct.
And how do we do that without telling the team this is what we're doing?
Passively, aggressively tanking.
Jim?
It kind of reminds me of, remember, 8-10 years ago when Tim Duncan was still playing, that the Spurs listed him as out because he was old. They put that on the injury report. They put not play DMP old. So it kind of reminds me of that. It's just one of those funny deals.
The only other thing I'm going to ask you guys, y'all ready for some snow? You just came back from some snow, huh? Going to see some snow next week.
I was walking in a blizzard in Chicago, which was nuts. But no, snowed in Boston on the off day on Saturday. It was actually kind of cool. And then walked through it in Chicago, which was not cool because in Boston it was 32 degrees. Sure. It was really, really nice, actually. It was 10 degrees in Chicago with a wind chill of about 0.
Erin, did you have some snow days in Carolina back in the day?
Yeah, back in the day. And then we didn't have to go to class for like a whole entire week or 2.
Oh,
it wiped things out for a while. So I don't know how things are going to be down here.
I mean, in New York, we needed like 2 feet of snow for them to say, like, maybe we shouldn't have school today. Usually we did. Usually we had to stand outside and trudge through like a foot of snow at the bus stop in 15-degree weather, walking uphill both ways to school. But no. I mean, I moved out of New York to not have snow, Gus. So what are we doing here? I don't want to. But I will say it hasn't. I moved here in 2007. We had snow in 2008, and it hasn't snowed since then.
Yes.
So I guess I shouldn't complain that I've gone 17 years here without snow.
Well, my son is just over the moon.
Really?
Because he's every year that, and I FaceTime when we were in Boston and said, it's snowing outside. And in Chicago, I did it again. My son's never seen snow. He cannot wait. And Gus, if we get 3 inches, my goodness.
It's going to shut down everything. It's going to be
That's why I bring it up, because we play Milwaukee on Wednesday.
minds.
So just, keep your eyes open.
In 2008, that just reminded me, in 2008, we had the most, by my standards, we had the most pathetic, small, tiny amount of snow.
A dusting?
Somebody outside my apartment complex made a snowman, and it was the saddest. It was like a foot high, maybe at the most.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was driving from out here in the suburbs downtown, because our offices were downtown, there was cars off the side of the road. I'm like, how could you be off the side of the road? It barely snowed. But anyways, the New Yorker and me will
I love it. On Monday's podcast, how to handle the snowfall from Jim Eichenhofer. I love it. Guys, this was fun. More importantly, we're seeing good basketball, and there's a little bit of an excitement going into it. So let's see what happens tonight.
Look, we know Zion's going to play tonight.
Yeah.
He's not on the injury report. We've got 2 days off, so you got to believe he's going to play Monday and he's going to play on Wednesday. So so now the people in the SKC are going to get to see what we've seen.
Todd, Erin, thank you.
Absolutely.
Our thanks to the Graf and Erin Summers for joining us here this morning. Jim, we got to get over to Shoot Around, but first,
TGI Jim, it's Friday, which means Mr. Eichenhofer has a pair of things for us. Trending numbers and weekend showdown. What are we starting with, Jim?
You know, I feel like the music, the groove is really hitting today with the way things are going, right?
Feels good,
I really
doesn't it?
like that. I like that bass. You know, the trending number, I'm going with the Pelicans are 8th in January in three-pointers made per game. So, I mean, they've drastically improved their performance in that area. They're also 6th in three-point attempts in January. They're averaging 40.9 per game, which, you know, as we know, the goal was 40. They're doing that and even slightly better than that this month. So 8 is the trending number, which is the rank that the Pelicans are in three-point makes per game. By the way, too, kind of slightly off topic, but it just reminded me, Boston has been struggling lately, and we talked about earlier in the season the way that they take so many threes. I've said this many times that the volatility of the three-point shot is hard to predict. I think that's a big reason why they've been basically like a 500 team over the last few weeks, because their percentage has dropped to bottom 10 over this last stretch. So anyways, something to keep an eye on. That it just shows you that, you know, Boston has overwhelmed people with the amount of threes they take and make, but when you take so many and your percentage drops, that alone can really hurt the way that you perform as a team. The weekend showdown is going to be Sunday at 8 o'clock on NBA TV, and that is a big matchup between the Lakers and the Clippers. Right now, the Clippers are in 5th place. The Lakers are in 6th place. They both have 17 losses. So I think that's a pretty monumental game in terms of these are two teams that are, you know, right now they would be avoiding the play-in, but there's extremely little margin for error. And it's also the first time that those two teams have played each other this season, the first time that they've met up in the Intuit Dome. So I'll be curious to see, you know, there's been a lot of Clippers home games that have turned into Lakers home games in the past, but in their new venue, I'm curious to see how that unfolds. And you know, the last thing, Gus, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this a weekly thing,
okay,
but I'm going to enlist your help going forward to come up with some of these if we can find it. I want to end every Friday show, or as many of them over the rest of the season, in a positive way. And so what I've come up with is another piece that we can do on Friday that's called the Good Dude of the Week, which is someone around the NBA, or, you know, it could just be somebody in New Orleans, just someone in general who did something that was worthy of being commended for. And my Good Dude of the Week is Steph Curry this week. And I don't know if you heard about this, but so I meant to mention this on Wednesday's show, but the week before that, the Warriors had a game on a Thursday night in Detroit that they won.
Yeah.
Then the next night they had a game in Indiana that was a back-to-back. They sat a bunch of players, including Steph Curry, because of it being the second night of a back-to-back. So, as is the case throughout the NBA, there's tons of kids that went to the game in Indianapolis expecting to see Steph Curry play, and he wasn't able to play. So he comes up with a brilliant idea. Steph Curry tells the Warriors PR staff, all right, guys, go out in the crowd, into the concourse before the game. This is probably like an hour before the game maybe, and find kids in Curry jerseys, because obviously if you see a kid in a Curry jersey, he came here to watch me play. I'm not playing, so I want to make it up to them. So they gather a bunch of kids who are in Indianapolis in the arena in Curry jerseys and shirts and stuff. They bring them into the back of the arena, and they all get to meet Steph Curry. They all get to. So, you know, obviously it was hugely disappointing for these kids when they found out that he's not going to play.
Yeah.
But instead of have it being like a ruined night, they all get to meet. I don't know how many kids it was. I'm sure they didn't probably get to every single kid that had a Curry jersey, but the ones that they were able to gather all got to meet Steph Curry. He talked to them for maybe 10, 15 minutes before the game, told them like how much he appreciates their support, how meaningful it is for him to see them wearing his jersey to the game. And so all these kids got this memory that is gonna last for so long.
That's incredible.
And as much of a Curry fan as they probably were before that they came to a game in Indiana against the Pacers in his jersey, imagine how much more it is. So I just thought that was such a thing, so much of a great thing I wanted to mention and just show respect for. And also, too, from like a broader standpoint, to me, I think the league overall, I'm not just talking about the Pelicans, like everyone across the whole league, we should all channel that type of thinking in terms of you have to always think about the fans first. People say, are the players the most important part of the league? Are the coaches the most important? Like, to me, it's the fans, because without the fans, nobody's making $50 million a year. I mean, we've seen other leagues that have started up, or like the WNBA has been in existence for a while, and it's you wonder, like, why do players make so much money in this league and they don't? It's the fans. It's not how talented. Of course, it's important that the players are talented and entertaining, but the fan base is the most irreplaceable part of all of this. So, anyways, I think that that's the thing that I want people to remember. Like, think about what Steph Curry did in that situation. And as we kind of deal with the load management situation and players missing games because of back-to-backs and stuff like that, and how frustrating that is for fans,
100%.
How can we think of ways that we can take care of them and address some of the problems that have arisen from, to me, it's a thing that's only taken place in maybe the last 5 to 10 years. This was not a problem for the NBA 20 years ago. So, anyways, tip of the cap to Steph Curry. I love it. I think that is such a cool thing that he did, and something that we need to copy in some shape or form across the rest of the league.
And look, and to your point, he's a guy, I remember 2-3 years ago, I think, right? There was a little girl at a game and asked him, hey, your shoe is in guys only. It's not. It was at. He was.
I do remember that
his
vaguely,
latest
yeah.
version, and it wasn't at a game. It was at a shoe store.
Okay.
And he was unveiling it, and it was a meet and greet. And this little girl, she's about 12 or 13. She's like, I love you, but your shoe only comes in boys, doesn't come in girls. And he's like, I never thought about that. He has daughters, and from that point on,
They started producing it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And now they're all that. You have. But in his brand, you have girls' shoes and boys' shoes, which I think was incredible to see that. But to your point, he's very thoughtful about that. And that is true because, look, I do it. There was a stretch here with the Pels. We didn't get to see him, right? He didn't play against the Pelicans for a couple of seasons. And I'm one of those guys. I'm like, yeah, I'll be right back. I'm going to go get a water here out of the studio. Don't come back for 15 minutes. He is one of those players. He absolutely is. Where the highlight, us chatting doesn't do it justice. You have to. I mean, and the last time he was on a court, I think this week he had a game winner, right, in the left corner
Against the Wolves. Yeah,
exactly. So people show up to see him, and I thought that you're right.
Yeah.
That's a great.
I mean, the recognition of his popularity is really important too, and I feel like too, as I've seen this in the time I've been here with, I'm 19 years into working in the NBA too. The amount of layers that we're starting to see develop that are between the fans and players, I think, is something that also we need to think about. That sometimes there's cases where there's like a stiff arm between the players and fans. And I'm not talking about little kids. I'm talking about just fans in general. But to be able to be more personal and just have that touch to things and just be thoughtful, I think is really important.
And as we close up, look, I mean, it's a topic. The commissioner a couple of weeks ago, he was asked, hey, viewership is down. Hey, how the 3-point? Do we have to talk about how the game? Is it exciting? Is it entertaining? And things of that nature. And the NBA was always one of those leagues that led the way in being innovative and marketing their players. To your point, now maybe they need to just go back to.
We need to revisit that.
Yeah, just the connect.
I'm sure you remember
connectivity.
When the slogan was "The NBA is fantastic."
Yes,
and that was all based on that
100%.
idea that everything is catered towards the fans, and that's what I want to see. I just want to see more of that be part of the thought process. That everything can't be okay. We're gonna do everything based on scientific methods and stuff like that, and just forget that the whole reason that this business even exists is because of the fans. Without them, we don't have these jobs. I mean, the players aren't making millions of dollars. The coaches aren't making good money. I mean, you can go down the list. You just got to remember that at all times.
I like to say I have a ton of ideas, but no one ever really listens to me. One of my ideas that I used to say on my talk show all the time along these lines, and I don't know if it's feasible. I don't know if owners or governors will ever do it, but I wish the NBA would have one game and tell the teams you have to have a game that's a general admission game. And what I mean by that is, as you know, the closer you are to the court, the seats are a little pricier. They just are. And I get it, and I understand why teams do that, put premiums on seatings, premium amenities, and all that. But there are some people that we'll never get to, as we saw last week. get jerseys from players, get to see them. And look, you've gotten a chance to at times, and now we're up, right? You guys are up. But unless you're on the court or close, you just can't appreciate the size of these players, the speed of these players. And I just think it'd be great for somebody that maybe predominantly sits in the 300 levels to be able to sit in just one general admission game. Tickets are $50.
I love that idea.
Tickets are $30. And make it like $20. And it's first come, first serve. You get there, you go sit wherever you want.
Sure.
And I think that, I mean, how exciting would that be for fans that have never gotten there? Now, hey, get there 2 hours early, get there 3 hours early. I can go sit second row. I can go sit courtside.
Right.
You know, one game a year.
I love that idea.
I think it'd be fantastic.
And I think part of what you're addressing too, or considering is, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think part of it too is not every decision has to be based on what's best for right now. Not every decision has to be based on what is the thing that we need to do for 15 minutes from now. I mean, your idea is something that 20 years down the road will pay off with fans.
100%.
I want people to think of that in terms a lot more. I mean, I hear people around here, people that have been longtime New Orleanians, talk about how they used to go to Jazz games in the 70s for like $5 or something, or they got tickets at like the shoe store. And so stuff like that, people remember. I mean, we're almost 50 years later since the Jazz left the city, and you still hear people talking about that, people that are in their 60s, maybe in 70s now. And it's just stuff like that that I think resonates with people a lot more than having every... I mean, I'm a fan of other sports too, so I know what it's like to be a fan. I'm a Phillies fan in baseball. I want to be treated like I'm considered. I don't want to be treated like, hey, give me your money. Yeah. So I think that is something that is smart to think about.
Yeah, and like I said, I get maybe you can't, maybe even the preseason game. It's a lone preseason game. You know, it's one game. And maybe it's one of those things, because unlike in the NFL, like, you know, Zion and them, they'll play in the preseason game, you know, but it's just something for me that would be fantastic to see. Maybe you do it during the Christmas break when the kids are out or something like that, where it's, you know, before the main part of the season. It's just something to me that would be, I guess, I don't know if it'd be simple, but because then now we're talking about, well, if you sell season tickets, it's, you know, 40 instead of 40. But you know what? Those are things you can figure out.
Sure, definitely.
Sit in a boardroom, you know, close the door, get a pizza, figure it out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can figure out logistics and planes and all that. You can figure out how to call it fan night. You know, to your point, how the league has done with their, you know, the in-season tournament or something of that nature. Make it a league initiative. That way, you don't even have to force it.
Right.
The league
Everyone does
wants to thank its fans once a year, and maybe the teams can choose it, or you do it kind of like you know, where it's that night or that week. You know, that week. It'll be Tuesday or Wednesday of that week. And the court's different. Put a, you know what, here you go, NBA. You can get it sponsored. You know, I mean, I'm just saying it can be sponsored with the logo and the sticker on the court that says it's fan night. And you know, in the games like that, the broadcast is about the fans and all that stuff. You get a kid with a headset with Kevin Harlan. You know, I'm just saying, like, it would be great to make it a fan thing.
You know what, Gus? If this idea ever gets approved and goes through, I can guarantee you that you will be the good dude of the week for whatever week that is, because these are all great ideas that everyone would support, I would think.
I hear you. Well, we got a lot to get into next week here as well. Thank you to Erin, to Todd, and to Mr. Jim Eichenhofer. We'll see you tonight at the game, 6:30. Pelicans warm-up, 7 o'clock tip with the Pelicans.
And by the way, no show on Monday because of the holiday, but we'll be back on Wednesday.
That is true for Martin Luther King Day. Next Friday, Jim, they're going to let you out again. We'll be at Parlays for a watch party. Should be fun right there in the Lakeview area. Come and see us on Harrison. Until then, you'll be listening to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast on the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast. Join us 3 times per week on Pelicans.com, the Pelicans mobile app, the iHeartRadio app, or where you get your podcasts. And be sure to give Jim and Gus a follow on X at Jim_Eichenhofer and GCat_17. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast.